Hello, my name is Matthias and welcome to the FPL Scope YouTube channel. Today I'm going to do something that I did a couple weeks back, and that is listing my favorite player at every single price point in Fantasy Premier League. So I'm going to start with the goalkeepers, move on to the defenders, then midfielders, and then attackers. I'm also going to, at the end of each category, I'm going to rank them from 1 to 3, like the top 3 picks out of each category. The top 3 goalkeepers, top 3 defenders, top 3 midfielders. You get the idea, top 3 forwards. But anyways, let's just start and we'll talk more about it as we go along. And let's go with the first player, and that is someone that is unchanged. It is the first goalkeeper, which is Areola. 4.0, I still think he's the best 4.0 goalkeeper. No other options have really opened up. There is Macy for Luton. Luton still haven't gotten a new goalkeeper yet, so their starting goalkeeper is priced at 4.0. So I guess if you want a starting goalkeeper from the get-go, you go with Macy from Luton. But it seems like Luton are pretty close to signing. I think it's the Blackburn goalkeeper. I can't remember his name exactly. But yeah, so he's probably going to be priced at 4.5, and then we won't have a 4.0 goalkeeper from there. But Areola still seems likely to be the goalkeeper of West Ham. More likely than not, he's going to be a starter. But it could still be Fabianski. But I still like Areola still. But moving on to the next player, we have Johnston. As you can see, he is marked with a green name. That means that he is new from last time. Areola was in the list last time, but Johnston was not my favorite 4.5 goalkeeper back like 2 weeks ago when I did it. Back then it was Mark Flecken for Brentford. I figured Flecken is going to take over from Raya and Raya was the best goalkeeper last season in FPL as the 4.5 goalkeeper for Brentford, but Flecken hasn't looked that good in preseason, and David Raya is a fantastic goalkeeper. Flecken, sure, he's a great goalkeeper. He was fantastic in the Bundesliga, but some Bundesliga keepers struggle when they come to the Premier League initially. Like Bernd Leno, for example. He was really good last season, but he had a couple of not so good seasons with Arsenal back in the day. So yeah, not 100% sure about Flecken yet, and Johnston is a really good pick. I also like Jason Steele for Brighton, but he is also slightly at risk because Brighton have a new goalkeeper, Bart Verbruggen, who might take over for Steele. We saw that last year, that De Zerbi is not one who is afraid of changing goalkeepers. So yeah, I prefer Johnston among the 4.5 goalkeepers. Next up, we have another new name, and that is Andre Onana. And the fact that he's new is because he wasn't in the game last time. Last time I picked Dibu Martinez from Aston Villa because there weren't really any other that good 5.0 goalkeepers. But Onana has since been added to the game, and I think he is a fantastic pick. He's obviously the starting goalkeeper for Man United, who kept the most clean sheets last season, and he's also much more of a ball-playing goalkeeper than David De Gea, so I assume he's going to get more bonus points as well, on top of having a lot of clean sheets. So Onana is fantastic for 5.0. He is tempting a lot of FPL managers to go with a 5.0 goalkeeper, even though it's way more popular to go with a 4.5 goalkeeper usually, but Onana seems like such a sure thing that he's a really good option. The 5.5 goalkeeper is also sort of a sure thing. It is Alisson. He stays on as the 5.5 goalkeeper. I did consider Ederson slightly because Ederson, to be fair to him, he has had close to 20 clean sheets per season the last few seasons, but he had 11 clean sheets last season, which is kind of crazy considering how few goals Man City conceded. And I think that might change this season. I think Man City might have to win matches more like 1-0, 2-0 rather than 4-1, 5-1 sort of thing. Because what happened with Man City back in the day was that they were leading 4-0 and they just conceded a stupid goal at the end because it didn't really matter. But if there are more closer games this season for City, if they are not as good as they have been before, which I think might be the case, then they might have to be tighter at the back. So maybe Ederson is a decent play at 5.5, but even still, not a huge fan of the 5.5 price point anyway. But Alisson, you know what you're going to get from him. He's always fantastic. He's a way better goalkeeper than Ederson, and he gets more saves. He gets more bonus. He could even score a goal from time to time, as we've seen it in the past. So yeah, he's my favorite 5.5 goalkeeper, but like I said, I don't really like that price point, and as you'll see by the rankings, he doesn't even make the top 3 out of the 4. So yeah, I prefer Onana, currently slightly ahead of Johnston as the second best goalkeeper. Areola is a decent value pick for 4.0, but seeing as he's not a confirmed starter and the mess West Ham are in at the moment, I'm not a super huge fan of Areola in terms of FPL, but he's a decent backup option for 4.0. Moving on to the defenders, we have Jared Branthwaite at 4.0. He's a new defender. I used to have George Baldock, and it's pretty 50-50 between those two guys. So I think Branthwaite is going to be the starting centre-back for Everton. Maybe not from the start of the season, though. So that's the thing. This list is more based on the whole season, because we'll get to the 8.0 striker eventually. Spoilers, it's going to be Gabriel Jesus, and I know he's injured to start the season, but over the course of the season, he's the player I prefer, and that's the same with Branthwaite. I feel like Branthwaite might not start at the beginning of the season. I still think he has a decent shot of being the starter in Game Week 1 as well, though. But George Baldock is a better chance. He has a better chance at starting in Game Week 1 compared to Branthwaite. But over the course of the season, I think Branthwaite will start perhaps even more matches than Baldock, because Baldock eventually will get more competition for his place, and he hasn't really been. He was dropped last season before he gained his place back again. So yeah, Baldock, he's a sure thing at the start of the season, but towards the end of the season, maybe not so much. Branthwaite, on the other hand, I think he's going to be fantastic as long as he gets to play. He has goal threat. He is playing for a defense that could keep clean sheets from time to time. Sean Dyche's Everton hasn't been the best defensively, but back in the day, Burnley were so good defensively, and maybe with someone like Branthwaite rather than Michael Keane in defense, which is a huge upgrade in my eyes, they might be better at keeping the clean sheet. So yeah, we'll see about Everton. Next man up is Destiny Udogie, and I think he is still one of the best defenders in the whole game. 4.5, I haven't changed since the last time I did this video, and I've seen a couple of content creators and stuff now consider Udogie, and I think he is pretty much a slam dunk. Like last season, Ivan Perisic was like the main guy to have in defense, and he was 5.5 playing for the same Spurs defense. Well, not exactly the same, because we had higher hopes for Spurs last season, but it's still Spurs. It's still the same players around him, and Udogie has not quite comparable stats in this area to Perisic, but pretty similar. And considering Perisic was on his way down and had like fitness issues and stuff because he's old, he can't really play every match. Meanwhile, Udogie is young, he's up and coming, he's going to improve as a player, and he has the fitness to play every single game. So I think he's better value than what Perisic was last season. And Perisic was a super popular pick and actually had some decent returns at the start of the season last year. But yeah, Udogie, fantastic pick for 4.5. 5.0, this is also another great pick. He's been in every single squad of mine in FPL, even more so than Udogie. And that is Purvis Estupinian. 5.0 is too cheap for him. He should have been 5.5. And I think even if it was 5.5, he would still be my favorite option at 5.5. We'll get to the 5.5 defender pretty soon, though. But yeah, Estupinian playing for Brighton, who are a really good team. De Zerbi has a really good team going there. Even if they lose Caicedo, I still think they will be pretty good. And especially offensively, Estupinian, the fact that he has so much attacking potential, 5.0, he might make a mockery of that. I feel like he could have a similar season to Trippier last season and be 6.5 next season, for example. So yeah, Estupinian, no-brainer for 5.0, even though I really like Gabriel Magalhaes as well. He's also in my team, but yeah, 5.0 is just a really good price point in general. 5.5 is actually a decent price point as well, and it has changed since last time. Last time I had Luke Shaw, and with the inclusion of Onana, I feel like there are less bonus points for Luke Shaw, and at the same time, I don't rate his attacking potential as highly as I did previously. And I also think Chilwell especially, but also John Stones, who was really close to being my pick at this selection. Both of those guys have potential attacking potential as well as being players who could get clean sheets. So Chilwell, especially the way he's been playing in preseason, he has been sort of like a left midfielder, been super far up the pitch. It seems like Chelsea are going to play with the sort of system where the right back becomes a centre back, and then Chilwell can just bomb forward on the left. And he seems like a fantastic pick. He takes corners from each side. He got an assist from a corner. He's had a couple of goals and assists in preseason, and he just looks amazing, really. Chelsea, not 100% sure about them yet. Not 100% sure about Chilwell's injury record, but I still think he's a great pick, especially at the start of the season when he's going to be fit to play. At least that's something we know. He's going to be fit to play, and he's going to play in a position where he could get a lot of goals and assists. I remember towards the end of last season, he had that little spurt of matches, like 4 or 5 matches, where he looked fantastic and was in the box all the time shooting. And I think he's sort of going towards the same role now under Pochettino, which is really interesting to see. 6.0, don't really have many options. Virgil van Dijk stays as the 6.0 defender. There's one other 6.0 defender. I can't remember right now who that is. But yeah, Virgil van Dijk, not a huge fan of his either, really. I have Konate at 5.0 as a more valuable pick than Virgil van Dijk for 6.0. I think he offers pretty much the same thing as Virgil van Dijk in terms of starts, in terms of goal threat, for $1 million less. So not a huge fan of this price point. Not a huge fan of Virgil van Dijk in FPL this season. I feel like he's overpriced. On top of alongside Robertson, who's 6.5. So Robertson is not my 6.5 pick. It's the other one. It is Kieran Trippier. I still think Kieran Trippier could be worth the 6.5 this season at some point. The start of the season, not so much, because they have difficult fixtures, but at certain points last season, he was just as good, if not better, than what Trent purports to be for a higher price. And we'll get to Trent because he's the only 8.0 defender. So Trent is someone that I was kind of not as high on as everyone else at the start of the season, or at the start of preseason at least. And now it seems like he's dropping out of more and more teams. He's not part of the template team anymore. I still think he is good. I still think he's going to be value at some point this season, but the start of the season for Liverpool isn't the best for defensive returns, and offensively he hasn't really looked that good in preseason either. They still haven't signed that defensive midfielder that could potentially unlock Trent to be better going forward. So yeah, Trippier and Trent, pretty good options, but too pricey at this point, especially with so many good value defenders at this point. And that's going to be reflected in the top 3 rankings. As you can see, my favorite option is Estepinian for 5.0. Second favorite option is Odogi for 4.5. And my third favorite option now is actually Ben Chilwell, who I rate quite highly. It's what I was trying to say. But anyways, those 3 midfielder or defenders are really good. Speaking of midfielders, I almost said midfielders. Let's move on to the 4.5 midfielder of choice, and that is Ahamada for Crystal Palace. Last time around, I picked Chiquinho, who has gone on loan. I had high hopes for him being the starter for Wolves, but alas, that was not meant to be. He went to Stoke on loan instead. A lot of Wolves fans were upset about that, by the way, so it seems like he could have been a good starter there, but I don't really understand Wolves. They also sold Ryan Giles at left back, so I don't really understand what they're doing this summer. It seems like they have trouble with financial fair play, but moving on to Ahamada, he has impressed in preseason. He's gotten some playing time for Palace with Olise injured and Zaha gone. I don't think he's going to start from the start of the season, but eventually maybe. They have Ayew and Schlupp on the wings, not the best options while they wait. So I think Ahamada might be the preferred starter on the wing eventually. But yeah, I think he is also the 4.5 option that I like the most because compared to someone like Nakamba who plays every game, Nakamba is going to get 2 points at most every game. And Ahamada might actually get some playing time and get some like 8-pointers, 9-pointers, 12-pointers at some point this season. So that's why I prefer having a higher ceiling guy for 4.5, because mostly those guys are going to stay on the bench anyway, so it doesn't really matter with the consistent playing time for those guys. At 5.0, we actually have a player that I think will get consistent playing time and will actually be a really good player this season. He's going to be one of the most important players for Bournemouth, especially if they want to keep their spot in the Premier League. The thing with Bournemouth, though, is that they have so many good wingers. They have, or at least like comparably good wingers. They have Tavernier, who's injured at the start of the season. He's 5.5. They have Justin Kluivert. They brought him in. Iraola brought him in, the new manager. So he's going to play quite a bit. And they also have David Brooks, who has returned from cancer and stuff. He's fully fit, thankfully. And he was really good back in the day. He was like an FPL option for, I think, 5.0, like 3 or 4 seasons ago before all of his health issues. So it would be really nice to see him back as well. Dango could also play as like because Iraola plays with like a 4-4-1-1 formation, so Dango might even play in that second striker role, but so far he's played on the wing in preseason. But I think he has all the talent in the world. He impressed me really like quite a lot last season, especially the game against Liverpool. He was fantastic. So yeah, Dango is someone that I really like the look of, and for 5.0 he's going to be a decent option eventually. So can't remember exactly what the 5.0 midfielder I had previously. I think it was, let me just double check. It was Garnacho. So yeah, the reason that Garnacho's dropped out is because Man United got Højlund as a striker. So that means Rashford plays on left wing. No more spots open for Garnacho, who might still break out and come into the team, but he has that disadvantage that he plays the same position as Rashford. So it's just bad luck for him, I guess, that the star player has the exact same favorite position. And that's pretty much the only position they can play as well. We'll see what happens with Man United. But anyways, that's not the topic of this discussion. 5.5, we have another new player, and that is Danjuma for Everton. Previously I had Enciso here, but I'm not that sure about Enciso's playing time. I think Enciso is a better player than Danjuma, at least potentially. But Danjuma, in his own right, has been fantastic in La Liga in previous seasons. He scored 6 goals in the Champions League like 2 seasons ago, I think, for Villarreal. So even though he didn't really get to show you much for Spurs last season, he did pretty well when he came on for Spurs, to be fair. But with Everton, he's going to be a starter 100%, whether that is next to Calvert-Lewin and as a striker, whether that's on the wing, left wing, he can play left wing, or if it's as a lone striker for Everton. Danjuma's going to play pretty much every match, at least. I think I have him at like 30 or 32 projected starts in my starting lineups in the FPL guide that you can check out. But yeah, Danjuma, I think he's going to be a really good pick for 5.5. Another player in consideration here is Andreas Pereira. I think he is being massively overlooked just because he was 4.5 last season and he was such fantastic value. I think he's being overlooked, especially now that he's probably on penalties with Mitrovic likely to leave. But yeah, I think Danjuma is just more of like a talisman for his team, and yeah, I actually think Everton will be better than Fulham this season. I don't have high hopes for Fulham this season at all, so that's why I prefer Danjuma over Andreas Pereira. Moving on, at 6.0, I have the same player as last time, and that is Morgan Gibbs-White. Obviously, from the start of the season, not so much, because Forest have one of the worst set of fixtures to start the season, but eventually Gibbs-White is going to be fantastic value. So yeah, he's the main man for Forest, takes penalties, takes free kicks, all that stuff. So yeah, he's fantastic value. He's actually someone, he's not in the top 3, by the way, that's a spoiler, but he is pretty close, actually, now that I think about it. So yeah, Gibbs-White, I really like him. Next up, we have the 6.5 midfielder spot, and this is probably the hardest spot to choose from because there's so many good options. I obviously have picked Moussa Diaby because I have a lot of faith in Diaby, and I have a lot of faith in Aston Villa as well. I think Aston Villa can challenge for those top 5 spots and get into the Champions League potentially. Because yeah, they have a really good squad, and I think Emery is building something good there. They had a really good end to last season, and Diaby is just a fantastic player, so that's why I've picked him. He is someone who should have gone to a bigger club probably, and he plays for a team that's going to be challenging those said clubs in the top 6. So yeah, I think he's the best 6.5, but there are so many good options. We have Eberechi Eze, who is my second favorite at this position. He doesn't have the best opening fixtures, and neither does Diaby, to be fair. So I actually have Mbeumo as my current 6.5 midfielder in my team for the start of the season. But yeah, who was I talking about? I was talking about Eberechi Eze. He's going to be fantastic, especially when Olise comes back and they have easier fixtures. That's the thing that keeps me away from Eze at the start of the season. I think Eze will be fantastic value, just not quite as good as Diaby, but I can imagine myself having both of them and potentially even Mbeumo on top of that as well. And potentially even Mitoma on top of that as well. Like I might have 4 6.5 midfielders. Mitoma is also a decent pick, but I have other Brighton players that I'm going to talk about that I like better. But yeah, all those guys are really good. And you also have Harvey Barnes for Newcastle. So there are so many good 6.5 midfielders. You also have Mudryk from Chelsea, who might break out and be a really good player this season. He's looked quite frisky in preseason. So many good players to choose from, but Diaby is my pick. I love that he is only 6.5. I had Jacob Ramsey is also someone I consider for 6.0 for the same team. So yeah, Aston Villa are like my favorite team this season in terms of being a big surprise, a welcome surprise if you want. So yeah, Diaby is a great player. At 7.0, I have a player from my own favorite team, and that is Jarrod Bowen. And this is pretty much just because you don't really have that many options at 7.0. I'm not a huge fan of Bowen, especially from the start of the season. I'm a huge fan of Bowen, don't get me wrong, but as an FPL asset, from the start of the season especially, he's not someone you should go for. But eventually, over the course of the season, he might be really good. He is my second favorite, perhaps even third favorite West Ham midfielder actually in the game, because I think Paqueta is also another 6.0 option that is going to be really good this season. And also, perhaps if Maxwell Cornet plays as a striker, he would be the best 5.5 midfielder. But Bowen is the surefire starter for West Ham. He is the main man now, especially now that Declan Rice has left. Bowen will have to take more responsibilities. There's only, not last season, but the season prior to that, he got over 200 points in FPL. So he could potentially be fantastic value for 7.0. But start of the season, I'm not so much into West Ham, especially the way West Ham have been doing stuff in the summer transfer window. They haven't done anything in terms of purchases in, though, and David Moyes, it seems like he is on his last legs with West Ham just a few months after winning a major trophy for West Ham. But anyways, Bowen could become really good eventually, but not at the start of the season. But over the course of the season, he's going to be a good pick, I think. He's probably going to be in my squad at some point. 7.5, speaking of players who are going to be in my squad at some point, we have Maddison for Spurs. I think 7.5 is way too little for him. He's going to be fantastic, especially when Spurs fixtures improve, which is from game week 3 onwards, just about. So yeah, speaking of 7.0, by the way, Richarlison could potentially be the best 7.0 by far midfielder, because Harry Kane might leave, and if Richarlison starts as a striker for the whole season, he's going to be one of the best assets in midfield. But anyways, Maddison is not that far behind, even as like a midfielder, a proper midfielder who's not going to play as a striker. Maddison probably takes a couple set pieces, might take penalties if Kane leaves. It's probably going to be Son, but either way, Maddison is so instrumental in everything that his team does, really. He's proven that both for Norwich and for Tottenham, or not for Tottenham, for Leicester. And he's going to prove that for Tottenham as well. So yeah, he's a great pick for 7.5. You have Foden as well, who's another decent option, but we know that Maddison is going to play every single week, and yeah, he's going to play for a really offensive team. And yeah, he's going to get a lot of points this season. So I really like Maddison for 7.5, especially later on in the season. 8.0, we have Martinelli. Still a huge fan of Martinelli. Still think he's going to be pretty nailed. Jesus just got injured, and some people might think that increases Martinelli's appeal, but judging from last season's numbers at least, he was better with Jesus than he was with Nketiah or Trossard as a striker. So maybe his value goes down a little bit with Jesus, but we don't really know. It's a small sample size, so we don't really know exactly what's going to happen with that. Speaking of that, actually, I have some interesting things, because you could compare that with Salah and Darwin last season, because at the start of last season, Salah and Darwin, it really diminished Salah's points whenever Darwin was the starting striker. But over the course of the season, that completely flipped. So towards the end of the season, Salah performed better when he played with Darwin. So that might happen with Martinelli and Jesus as well, or Martinelli and Nketiah or Trossard. He might start performing better now, and especially considering he's so young and he's going to improve. I just think he's a fantastic player. So 8.0, he's quite close to being better than Saka, who is my 8.5 midfielder, I can mention already. So both those guys, they keep their place, and yeah, Saka just about edges out Bruno Fernandes, but yeah, I think the Arsenal midfielders are still great value, even though they are a higher price this season. Saka, some people have said that he should have been 9.0 or even 9.5 or potentially even 10. I've heard people say that, but yeah, for 8.5 especially, he's a fantastic pick. Even slightly better than Bruno Fernandes, who both of them are in consideration for my own team. And Saka is pretty much nailed in my own team because I think he is fantastic value. 9.0, we'll have another player that I like even more than Bruno, even though he's 0.5 more, and that is Marcus Rashford. I think he has more of a goal threat than Bruno Fernandes. And he is the main man for Man United, who are going to be better this season. They're probably going to score more goals, and Marcus Rashford is going to finally get his 20-plus goal season in the Premier League, I think, this season. So fantastic value for a 9.0. 10.5, Kevin De Bruyne. I've seen some people disregard De Bruyne entirely and say that he's probably not going to be worth it this season, but at some points last season he was worth 12.0, so he'll definitely be worth 10.5 at some point this season, perhaps even as early as Game Week 3. That's why I'm pretty interested in I'll just reveal the 12.5. Surprise, surprise, it's Salah, but I have Salah on my team currently, and I'm probably going to sell him in Game Week 3. And one of those things that is enticing about having Salah and selling Salah in Game Week 3 is the fact that I could get De Bruyne in for Game Week 3. Man City have fantastic fixtures, especially from Game Week 3 onwards, after they're done with Newcastle. I think from Game Week 3 until Game Week 7, they have just one easy game after another. And it's Man City, who are fantastic. And it's De Bruyne who's going to play every single game, pretty much when he's back healthy. I think he could be fantastic value, but at the same time, I think Salah could be, I pretty much know that Salah is going to be even better value, because Salah is that amazing. He is the Egyptian king. He has been the best player of all time. He is the best player of all time in Fantasy Premier League, and he's still going to be value, even though he's going to play wider or whatever and get more assists and goals or wherever people are telling themselves now. Salah is still going to be fantastic, and I think a lot of you guys will be scared when he plays against Bournemouth in Game Week 2 and you don't have him in your team. I'm going to have him in my team because I really, really rate him highly. As you'll see here from my top 3, he is number 3 because he is still super expensive, but Rashford and Saka, I think, have even more value than Salah. So that's why I have them slightly ahead, but Salah is fantastic value. He even beats out Diaby, who was really close to being number 3 for me as well, because yeah, he's a fantastic player. Maddison as well. There's so many good midfielders. There's just too many to choose from, really. In terms of the forwards, we have Mubama as the 4.5, Divine Mubama for West Ham. It seems like he is the 4.5 attacker or forward with the most chance to play. David Moyes has said that, or at least there are reports that David Moyes has said that he wants Mubama to stay. Every other youngster are going out on loan, but Mubama is staying put because he's going to get some playing time. I imagine that's going to be mostly in the Europa League and in the Cups, but he might get some minutes here and there in the league as well. And he's such a good talent that he might actually blossom and become the starter eventually for West Ham, especially if Antonio or Scamacca or both of them get sold, which might happen because there's a lot of rumors about that. I think Mubama personally, I would rather go with Mobama for the entirety of the season rather than Ings, but I know David Moyes is the manager currently, at least, and he's going to prefer Ings even if Antonio and Scamacca are sold. But Mobama is not that far off the starting position at West Ham, so he's the best 4.5 option by far. 5.0, we have Vinicius for Fulham. Fulham have brought in Raul Jimenez. They haven't sold Mitrovic yet, but I still imagine Mitrovic will be sold. And I think Vinicius is going to be the starting striker mostly because Jimenez can't be playing every single game either. He's not fit to play every single game. So I think Vinicius is a really good striker as well. He proved at some points last season, even though they struggle without Mitrovic, and they're going to struggle without Mitrovic if he leaves now. I think Vinicius can get some goals, especially for 5.0. That's a great price point for him. So if you need like a cut price striker, he might be your guy eventually this season. For 5.5, we have another one of my favorite picks, and that is João Pedro. I pretty much feel like João Pedro is kind of like the same value as McAllister was towards the end of last season for Brighton when everyone had McAllister, because he's most likely on pens. I think he took a penalty in preseason at least. He plays either as an attacking mid or as a forward even at some points for Brighton, which is even further up the pitch. That's one step above what McAllister did, who usually played as a cam but sometimes plays as a CM. João Pedro will play as a cam and sometimes play as a forward. Obviously, he's listed as a forward, so he'll get less points from scoring goals and clean sheets, but at the same time, every goal he scores, he'll be more likely to get bonus points as well. So I think Pedro is fantastic value. He is currently in my latest draft, which I'm going to reveal to you in a couple of days because there have been so many injuries to the strikers. But over the course of the season, I think 5.5 for João Pedro is going to be really, really low. Obviously, Brighton have a lot of attackers. That's the worry about Pedro. Ferguson and Enciso, people have high hopes for them. They're going to play quite a bit as well, but I think Pedro can play on each wing as well. He can play pretty much all over the pitch, so I think he's great value for 5.5, especially at the start of the season with Ferguson not playing so much yet in preseason. March hasn't really played in preseason that much either, so especially on the start of the season, I think João Pedro is just really good, and he can prove a lot more than he did at Watford because Brighton are a much better team than Watford, and he'll have a much better chance to prove himself, kind of like what Diogo Jota did when he left Wolverhampton to go to Liverpool. People thought like, oh, he's a decent striker, he scores a couple goals for Wolverhampton but not that much, but then he went to Liverpool and showed that he just needed better teammates around him to fully blossom, and I think that's going to be the case with João Pedro as well. 6.0, we have João Wissa. I am pretty high on Wissa as well, but I still think Mbeumo is better value from midfield for 6.5, and I think there are other better value players and among the forwards as well, but Wissa in his own right can score a lot of goals from the start of the season. Brentford have really easy matches. The first match is against Tottenham at home, and I think they could win that match 4-3 or 3-2 or whatever, because that's going to be a high scoring match, I think. And yeah, Wissa is a really good player, but yeah, there are some other options that I could potentially pick here. Ferguson, like I mentioned earlier as well, if he starts playing, he is another great striker pick for Brighton. So, but yeah, Wissa is really good. Not exactly the same value as Mbeumo. I think he's slightly less value. He's slightly more under threat of being benched because you have Kevin Schade at left wing. You have Lewis Potter who could play on the wing, and you also have, you saw in preseason, Josh Da Silva or Palenda Da Silva or whatever he goes by. He scored a beautiful goal from the right wing as well. So Wissa, he is played mostly as a striker, but yeah, there are some players that might play instead of Wissa this season, but I still think he's a great pick. 6.5, we have Julian Alvarez, and I think he is going to be the best value player in the game if Haaland gets injured, but as long as Haaland is fit to play, as long as De Bruyne is fit to play, Foden, Grealish, Bernardo Silva, Alvarez's game time will be slightly limited. I think he's going to play more this season. He's going to get more starts than he did last season, and especially if he gets like 3 or 4 games in a row, he might be the new Mahrez actually, who like plays every game for like 4 weeks, and then he's dropped for 4 weeks, and he plays every game for 4 weeks, and then it's impossible to know when to get him and when to not get him. So yeah, but Alvarez, I think over the course of the season, he's going to be great. I think also Haaland has a chance of getting injured this season because he didn't really get that injured last season, but he is sort of an injury-prone player. So if that happens, the swap from Haaland to Alvarez, and then you get basically 7.5 million in the bank if you do that transfer from Haaland to Alvarez, and won't really lose that much production. Like obviously Haaland is a better striker than Alvarez, but Alvarez is fantastic. So if he starts as a striker as an out-and-out striker for Man City throughout the season, he would be the best player in the game by far. So yeah, he's pretty much a no-brainer for 6.5. 7.0, we have another no-brainer because the other option is Romelu Lukaku, but at the same time, I'm a huge fan of Nick Jackson. I think even if Rasmus Højlund comes in at 7.0, I still think I prefer Jackson as a forward for the same price. So Højlund might even be 7.5, but if he comes in at 7.0 Højlund, I still think Jackson is slightly better, even though I rate Højlund as well. I think he's going to be great in the league, but I think Nick Jackson is fantastic. Like, I've been so impressed with him in preseason. I know my co-host Kevin has spoken really highly of him even before the preseason, and he's really shown that he has all the makings of being the best striker in the league, potentially, eventually, especially if Haaland leaves for Real Madrid. But he might be the starting striker for Chelsea, even though Chelsea, speaking of Lukaku, they are linked with like a swap deal, Lukaku for Vlahovic coming into Chelsea, which would really hamper Jackson's value. So that's why I'm kind of iffy about having Jackson from the start of the season. Especially considering there is a 7.5 forward who is even better value, and that is Christopher Nkunku. He's going to be fantastic. He's going to be on penalties, on free kicks, so I think he's just better value than Jackson, even though I really like Jackson as well. So Nkunku is my 7.5 attacker of choice. He obviously has competition from Alexander Isak, who's the same price. Same goes for Isak. If Callum Wilson gets injured, then Isak is a fantastic pick, probably the best pick, potentially even better than Nkunku. But I really like both Nkunku and Isak. They are two of my favorite players in the league, so really looking forward to see them play. Nkunku, especially as a new player in the league, he's going to be fantastic. There's no chance he's going to be ending up like Havertz and Werner and stuff. I think he's far too talented to end up like that. So I have a lot of faith in Nkunku as a great option this season. 8.0, I'm still going for Gabriel Jesus. Like I said, this is not a early season ranking. This is a whole season ranking sort of thing. So yeah, I think Jesus, when he's back fit, he's going to be a pretty good option. He was in my team. I really had issues dropping him. I really wanted to drop him because I wanted to spread the funds a bit for the rest of my team. So in a way, the injuries worked out, but obviously I hope Jesus rises back up and becomes the saint that he used to be, at least in FPL. But yeah, I think Jesus is the best 8.0 attacker, even though Watkins is fantastic. Like I said, with Diaby, I think Aston Villa will have a fantastic season, but that's just the thing. Like, usually you don't want to double up with Aston Villa. And if you just want to pick one attacking player from Aston Villa, I still want to go with Diaby, who's 1.5 cheaper than Watkins. But Watkins, the double up might happen eventually when Aston Villa have easier fixtures, and if they prove to be as good of a team as I think they can be. So Watkins is definitely in consideration. The same with Wilson. What I said with Isak counts for Wilson as well. If Isak is injured, then Wilson is a fantastic pick and someone you should probably pick. If Isak was injured now, for example, if he got an injury in preseason, we would all step over and bring Wilson in, because Wilson, towards the end of the last season, he was the best striker in the game, pretty much, even above Haaland, who was getting rested and stuff towards the end of the season. So yeah. Speaking of Haaland, we're not going to get to Haaland just yet. It is Harry Kane, who's still in the game. He's still in the Premier League, but it seems like he's going to leave for Bayern Munich, so I don't really have to mention him that much. Even if he stays, I think he is not the same value as Salah for the same price. And he's obviously not the same value as Haaland as well, because Haaland is the pick at 14.0, obviously. And spoilers, he is going to be number one in my rankings. But yeah, like I said, João Pedro, really like him. I really like Nkunku as well. So I have Haaland number 1, Nkunku number 2, and João Pedro as number 3. So yeah, I think I've spoken quite a lot in this video. So I'm going to leave it there. It's been just about half an hour of FPL information. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you visit the FPL guide. As you can see at the top there on your screen, you can visit the guide at thevideoscope.com/FPL guide. The link will be in the description. There's also going to be some fun videos coming up eventually. I think on Monday, I'm going to post like a Mo Salah or no Salah type of video where I'm going to make the case for Salah and starting the season with Salah, because I think there is a case to be made, definitely, because I have him in my team personally. So I'm going to look at the numbers a little bit. I'm going to dive more into if he is a great pick from the start of the season, and especially the Game Week 2 fixture, if he is that much better of a captaincy option than Haaland. That's one of the things that comes into if you want to start the season with Salah or not. So yeah, there are a lot of things to think about when it comes to including Salah in your team or not, but it would be on top of Haaland, obviously, because Haaland is the best value player in the game. He would be the golden boy, the number one player if I ranked all of these guys, but I haven't done that. But anyways, I hope that video was informative. hope you like this. I hope you stay on and watch more content as it comes throughout the season. I'm going to upload quite a few videos every week, somewhere in between 3 and 5 videos every week at least. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Subscribe if you haven't already. Would gladly see the subscriber amount go higher, because I have made a stupid sort of promise that if I don't get into the top 10k this season in FPL, or if I don't get 10k subs, I'm going to quit FPL before the start of next season. So yeah, stay tuned for that if that's going to happen. So yeah, I hope you can join me this season and help me with that subscriber number as well. Like the video and all that stuff if you want to as well, if you want to help out, if you like this video, if you like the new graphics, if you like the animations and stuff. I've tried some new things recently, trying to improve the production quality of this video or of the videos that I make. So yeah, thank you for watching. That has been it for me, and I'll see you next time.